some want to move away from the dollar, what will be the effect on us? I don't think it's something you would feel right away. Over time, they would have to create an ecosystem, economic ecosystem, whereby another currency becomes, you know, a better currency for them to use. You know, what we can do is we can make the dollar the most attractive currency by continuing to have the rule of law and open capital accounts and make it an attractive place for people to invest and to use in their businesses. There wouldn't be any short-term effect of that. Over time, though, you know, it would, I suppose it would diminish our status as the reserve currency. It's also possible to have more than one large reserve currency, and there have been times when that was the case.
19 nations have made a bid to be a member of BRICS. I mean, where are you with how many will be able to join this year?
So firstly, the bank was started, as you know, in 2015 by the BRICS countries. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Right from the outset, when the bank's Articles of Agreement were signed in 2014, the intention of the founders have always been to create a global bank anchored in the emerging markets. So 2 years ago, during the COVID era, we already had United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Bangladesh joining the bank. Uruguay is in the final stages of ratification. And as you just highlighted, Saudi Arabia and other countries have shown a strong interest to join. So the path of opening up and broadening and expanding the global footprint of the bank will be ongoing. It's really two components to it. The first one is to become a more global emerging markets bank, as I've just mentioned. And then secondly, very importantly so, the bank is hoping to increase, as part of its membership expansion, and bring in fresh capital. Right now, the New Development Bank has $50 billion of subscribed capital. That comprises of $10 billion of equity or paid-in capital that came from members. By expanding, we get fresh capital into the bank, which enables us to lend more and grow our balance. And the first point to make is that the New Development Bank has US dollar as its anchor currency. Our balance sheet is in US dollars. We are firmly embedded in the US dollar hemisphere, if you like. I think the development of anything alternative is indeed, you know, a medium, more longer term ambition. You know, if you take one step back and you imagine what it was like in 1944 when the current global financial architecture that we have today was created with the formation of the World Bank and the IMF. If we were to have a similar Bretton Woods conference today, it is highly unlikely that it will be anchored by a single currency. So all we are saying really amongst the BRICS countries is that we need to reimagine what a world that is more appropriate to the conditions of today would look like. And it certainly would mean that emerging market currencies will play a bigger role. The Chinese renminbi, for example, which is, as you know, now part of the special drawing rights, it is growing as a currency of trade, but it's still a long way off from becoming a reserve currency. So it's going to take a very long time for currency movements to take shape. So any discussion of alternate currencies is indeed much more of a medium, longer term aspiration. I think it's important to highlight that, you know, the BRICS countries and these emerging markets, you know, each have different economies with unique features. China is, as you just highlighted, the single biggest within the BRICS bloc with, you know, a second in terms of GDP size globally. No one is suggesting right now that BRICS will form an alternate currency. All we are suggesting is that we need to deepen the use of local currencies of our member countries, and over time that is going to strengthen our ability to immunize or insulate our economies from the devaluation of our currencies if we borrow in dollars, for example. But there is no suggestion right now to create a BRICS currency in that sense.
We've been talking about de-dollarization, and there is agreement is not going to happen anytime soon. The thing is actually happening faster than most anticipated. In your view, do you see more EMs, emerging markets, emerging countries going that way?
I think, as you know, the United States economy have been the #1 economy in the world for the last 150 years. Pretty much over the last 80 years, as the reserve currency anchored when the Bretton Woods meetings took place in 1944, that is the domain that we are in. As you know, we have the special drawing rights where we've got, the British pound, the euro, Japanese yen, and the renminbi joined in 2016. Despite the fact that over the last 7-8 years, the renminbi have been part of the SDR, it still only constitutes roughly about, 3.84% of global FX flows. So any movements in currencies, these are structural, long-term changes. So what is happening right now is a greater recognition that there is space and potential to use local currencies as currencies of trade. For example, China and Brazil has announced that they will trade in their respective local currencies. India has done the same, and so on. But one should not conflate that with the creation of new currencies. The greater use of our own currencies is part of a longer-term agenda of building and strengthening our own local capital markets. And over time, this is going to result into changes in the medium term.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And guys, if you remember, Jerome Powell stated there's been times in history where there's been more than one world reserve currency. And we're about to live in those times. We know the United States world reserve currency is not going anywhere, but it's going to lose a lot of power to China and that digital yuan. And we know a lot of countries are going to have their own stable coins, and they'll be pegged against either the United States dollar or the Chinese yuan. But we know at the end, China, the digital yuan, is going to rise to be that world reserve currency. We see America to Babylon 2.0 crumbling. And again, the only thing you have to do is look at the Belt and Road. But we have one of the BRICS chiefs financial officers saying that Bretton Woods 2.0 is coming, but it takes time. And guys, we know this is part of a plan. It moves and fades. It's not going to happen overnight. But no one talks about the fourth industrial revolution, where the robots, algorithms, and drones take the economy over. The reason why, because that's what's going to speed up the fourth industrial revolution, this digital transformation. Remember, crypto means hidden message, hidden meaning. These digital assets are for the machines. Do not forget the NWO's go. And then, guys, we have Jay Clayton on the SEC. And now the SEC wants to come down and all of a sudden start to bring down risks. Why? Because we know the banking system is about to change. And Jay Clayton says a spot Bitcoin ETF is ready for approval. And then we have Jay Clayton on China. And guys, don't forget, our big corporations went over to China for cheap labor. Remember the reason why we had slavery in the United States? It was for free labor. So since they couldn't get it for free, let's get it for the cheapest we can. And that's the reason why we have the rise of China. Now the next step for the NWO is take all the power away from the people, and that's the rise of the machines. Because now the machines can do all the work, but what are you going to do with the useless people? And that's the reason why they have the metaverse. That's the reason why they are testing universal basic income all around the globe. So this time they can hand out the free money. But remember, this time, guys, is going to be programmable, telling you what, where, and when and how to buy. And you have 3 to 6 months to spend it, or poof, it's gone. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
AI? Yeah, I think it's going to change dramatically every phase of our life.
I mean, there's a rule now being proposed for the SEC. It's doesn't have to be gross negligence. It's almost anything could be construed as negligence in terms of lawsuits.
Yeah, look, I think a mandatory negligence standard in the context of investing, which is inherently uncertain. It's about the future. We can't predict the future.
And if you're going for high returns, there's going to be losses from time to time that might not be from negligence.
And a legal standard like strict liability, negligence, gross negligence, recklessness, those standards are judged with hindsight. And so you have a negligence standard with something that's forward-looking. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It also, from what I would say is not just from a substantive point of view, but from a legal point of view, imposing contract terms on private parties, that's a pretty big step. You know, parties who can freely negotiate. What I think is a better way to approach the investor and the manager is ensuring alignment of interest. What are we doing to ensure that there's alignment of interest, that people have the same sort of skin in the game? That's a much better way to deal with these issues. Yeah,
don't hold your breath. That's not going to happen anytime soon. And either party, depending on who's in office, could certainly accuse the other party when they're in office of gross negligence. You don't think Republicans are talking about what's happening now as gross negligence in the economy?
I think that's exactly the point, Joe, which is that in how you manage an investment, how you manage the economy, when there are so many factors at play, with hindsight, you're always going to be viewed as not having done the best job you could.
Have you watched with interest as blue chip firms have decided that they want to get involved with Bitcoin or crypto?
Well, give me a minute. It's a fascinating etymology. Let's go back to like 2015, 16. This is an offshore, retail, nothing close to what I would say the core of our financial markets. At that time, if you look at trading of Bitcoin, the emergence of Bitcoin, it looked like stocks, but it was nothing like it. Now we've seen a development all the way to the point where companies whose reputation in the market matters are saying, you know what, we think that trading, we think that the custody, we think that those protections around this market are sufficient that we're willing to put our name on it and offer that product. That's actually an incredible development, not one that I expected. I was very skeptical of trading in the Bitcoin market when I was SEC chair. I thought, there were studies that 90% of it was wash trading, ripe for manipulation and the like, large people dumping. The fact that we have these institutions that know markets better than anybody and are saying, we're going to put our reputation behind it, I find that pretty remarkable.
Can they say no to a spot ETF? For how much longer?
Well, it goes to that issue. I think that when the SEC approved the futures-based ETF, they said, let's look at the futures market. We see the surveillance. We see the protections in that market for the end investor that are sufficient. We don't see them in the spot market, so we're going to make that distinction. I think what the institutions are arguing is that those distinctions have gone away, and now the spot product is actually less drag, more efficient for the investor. So if there's not that delta in regulation, not that delta in what I could say efficacy, the spot should be approved. That's the argument that's going on right now. Look, the regulatory process, whether it doesn't matter.
It's been a while already.
It's been a while already. What I would say is this: if they're right, that you can demonstrate that the spot market has similar efficacy to the futures market, it would be hard to resist approving a Bitcoin ETF.
About China, Secretary Yellen is over there. Can we start investing in Chinese stocks again? I mean, there's people like Kyle Bass think you're out of your mind with the, less stringent regulatory oversight and sort of avoiding some of our regulatory oversight here. Are we friends again?
Well, look,
everything okay?
I love Kyle because he does his work. You see, he digs in, he does his work. We had 2 cabinet secretaries go to China in the last 3 weeks. What is that telling us? We have a time of dislocation in the global economy. They recognize that we need China, and China needs us in order to get through this period of dislocation.
Get down the rhetoric more than anything, right? It's not that we're going to change behavior so much as change the way we say things, is what it felt like to me with this, where she's saying we're not going to use words like decoupling and de-risking. They're talking about diversifying. I mean, it's the same thing, but she said it like this, right?
Well, look, we are in a place in our relationship with China where we are there's no doubt about it. I don't think anybody takes the other side of it. We're overly dependent on what I would say is a vicious competitor and somebody who on the world stage would like to displace us. Sure. No one takes the other side of it. But we're there. What do we have to do? We have to recognize how codependent we are. I actually like the Elon Musk co-joined twins version. We are very much stuck together economically. I think what we're seeing is not just so much going positive, but if things were to get more negative, it would be very difficult to get through this time of economic turmoil. I think that's the judgment that this administration is making, demonstrated by sending 2 cabinet officials to say, let's try to work our way through this
in the
near term. Look, I see both sides of the argument. I see that now is the time where the United States is in a position of relative strength to start decoupling, to be making those strategic moves. I also see the fact that any kind of abrupt mistake in U.S.-China relations is going to have an adverse effect on the economy. This is going back to Joe's negligence point. Right. You know, there's no perfect solution here. You know, we could do a better job of understanding where is the end state that we want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I don't think we want to be as dependent as we are today.
So last week, when the judge made that ruling, I thought I was horrified, but I understood that the government was trying to get everyone to get the vaccine. So I could understand why they'd call Twitter or Facebook and say, don't let that negative stuff about the vaccines. I don't want to see that. I understand why they did it. They wanted to get everyone vaccinated. So, but in hindsight, that was bad. Suppressing a lot of things was bad. But then I saw some people from the FBI say they need to be able to talk to social media about things they see on Twitter and Facebook to protect people, to protect the country. They need that access, and this would preclude them from doing things. What's the right move? And will this stand up? Does it go to the Supreme Court?
Yeah, let me try and draw a distinction. I think that government officials should come on this program. I think government officials should call reporters. I think they should inform you as to what they're thinking, why they're thinking it, give you the facts. We want that. I mean, they are in a unique position. What we don't want them to do is call up a regulated entity, for example, and say, here's my view of the world. And by the way, if you don't accept it, regulation is going to get tougher. Once you go, the case is very interesting, and it's worth a read. The judge does a very careful job of saying they went over the line from information to coercion.
Now we can, there will be consequences if you don't do what we want.
And if you feel emotional about something, you know, that's okay. Like you could really care and feel emotional, but you can't threaten to use the power of the state in order to, what I would say is, move the public square debate.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, you know, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, you know, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
And also, I do believe the role of crypto is it's digitizing gold. Bitcoin is an international asset.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, well, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leverage to technology, and I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get on stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing they were still getting that free money, what they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.